guys. We're out here on the deck this morning.
What really happened to swamp loggers? If you watch this show closely, you might think it's either because he retired or because the crew members moved on. But the truth is far more heartbreaking than you realize. When the show went off the air in 2012, Bobby Goodson had to go through real-life struggles, tougher than the challenges he faced during swamp logging. In 2022, he stood before his fans, teary-eyed to declare that his family's decade-long legacy, built across 4 generations, was falling apart. So what really happened? In the span of 10 years, how did things fall apart? How did a man who endured floods, machine failures, and survived the deadliest swamp in North Carolina end up on his knees? In this video, we shall bring the truth to light. Swamp Loggers television premiere marked the beginning of a change. No scripted arguments or conflicts, just honest work, real danger, and authenticity. Millions of viewers would tune in every Thursday night to watch Bobby Goodson lead his family-like crew through mud so deep that it could swallow heavy machines weighing about 40,000 pounds. They watched trees fall, trucks flip, tense atmosphere, and the determination to keep going. Everything raw and unfiltered. Due to his authenticity, Bobby became the hero to working-class America. Viewers were emotionally invested in his shows because they saw a man who kept his words, treated his crew members like a family, and showed the determination to never give up. They were so captivated by him that they'd celebrate his success and get worried if something goes wrong, as if he was their family member. Hardly anyone knew the burden he carried off camera. The sleepless night and the responsibility of keeping men employed in a fading industry weighed heavily on him. He suffered in ways we could hardly imagine. Let's talk about what swamp logging actually is. People believe that it's simply cutting down trees in wet conditions, but the reality is harsh. You never know when the seemingly solid ground would swallow the gigantic machines. At times, storms arrive unannounced, or even trees can fall, taking someone's life. Logging is already one of the most dangerous jobs in America, but swamp logging pushes the danger to another level. Bobby's crew members risk their lives every single day. Bobby knows that one wrong decision from him could endanger someone's life. The pressure is really overwhelming. Some of the danger was caught on camera. From trucks rolling over to timber crashing down, viewers witnessed it all. What they didn't see was Bobby at 2 a.m., staring at the spreadsheet, worrying about how he would cover the payroll if a mill payment comes late. They didn't see the fear flickering in his eyes when the repair bills stacked up faster than he could handle. Digging through Reddit threads, we learned that the people who have lived through this reality, the former loggers and the natives of North Carolina, claim that the danger and struggle are far worse than what's shown on TV. One user wrote that the machines broke down so frequently that it seemed funny to the viewers. But what seemed funny on screen wasn't funny at all if off camera. Once you hear how much money he poured into those repairs, you'll feel awful. Another user mentioned that accidents happen daily, and if anyone had reported it, the production would have been shut down. Bobby was burdened by the financial crisis, yet he pretended that everything was fine. After the show went off air in 2012, Bobby kept pushing for 10 years, but the problems didn't cease to stop. Instead, they were escalating. Around 2019, the logging industry faced a series of challenges. The fuel prices began to climb. The machinery parts not only became expensive, but also hard to find. The mills also reduced their quota, meaning loggers won't be able to sell woods as much as they used to. And above all, COVID made things even worse. The things which appeared difficult earlier now seemed impossible. The price of the diesel almost tripled, and since logging trucks consume a lot of fuel, the transportation costs exceeded what they earned from selling logs. Thus, the business no longer seemed profitable. The machinery parts made things even worse. The replacement parts were either expensive or were so scarce and unpredictable that it seemed they would take ages to arrive. And the mills? They began limiting how much wood they'd buy. So even if Bobby and his crew members cut more timbers, it was pointless. They wouldn't be able to sell wood. Voices spread inside the logging community that Bobby could no longer sleep, or at most, just 3 hours a day. Some people said that they'd see him strolling in the yard in the dark, checking the machines he had already inspected numerous times before, in the hope that one would get fixed miraculously. Others said he'd calculate figures over and over again to come up with ideas that would make his business survive. What most people didn't understand was that the logging business was not something he chose for himself. It had run in his bloodline for 4 generations. For him, it wasn't just a business, but a legacy to uphold. And this is why he tried everything he could to keep this decade-old business alive. Bobby was expected to pass down this legacy to his children in the same way it had been passed down to him, but fate had other plans. Somewhere between the skyrocketing diesel prices, expensive and scarce machinery parts, and reduced quota of mills, his dreams crumbled. The world had changed faster than he could adapt. By early 2022, it was possible to see the situation clearly. He had two options: keep pushing through until things break him apart, or quit everything and walk away. For someone as persistent as Bobby is, the mere thought of quitting was devastating. Just imagine what his situation must be at that point. When it was time for the announcement, the logging community saw what was coming. They knew his decision before the public announcement. All the equipment was put up for auction, and the news spread like wildfire across Facebook. Eventually, in May 2022, Bobby went live on Facebook and told the truth. His voice trembled as he said that Goodson's all-terrain logging was shutting down for good. He explained that it wasn't because he wanted to quit or lost his passion towards his business, but because of the economical change which made it impossible for him to continue. The heartwarming part was that the response was overwhelming. The fans cried and showed deep empathy towards him. Former crew members shared their grief too. Even people who have met Bobby once or twice felt a deep loss. And just like that, legacy vanished into thin air. So is that it, or is there more to the story? Let's see. What happened after the show ended tells us a story that was never captured on camera. The logging industries were crashing down and jobs weren't easily available. A few crew members struggled to find a job while a few felt depressed since they lost a bond they cherished. When the show came to an end, they not only lost their job but also the sense of belonging. It felt like they had lost their family. Who could have predicted such a sudden collapse? There are a few stories related to this. One such story belongs to Dave Muller, Bobby's brother-in-law, who wasn't just any crew member. He cooked for them and fixed machines to keep things running. He opened up about how he struggled with addiction in his past. The work he did required hard labor, which left serious physical damage to him, affecting him both mentally and physically. However, he said that it was his faith and family who saved him in the end. In 2017, they learned that Lee Malpass, son of crew member Bo Malpass, was killed in a car accident, which left the whole team devastated because they weren't just normal co-workers. They were like a family sharing joy and sorrow. And here's what happened to Bobby. The man who once fought floods and led crews has now retired from logging, selling all his assets rather than letting them rust in his yard. He's now spending his life differently, engaged with a local church where he talks about faith and resilience. He rarely posts on social media, and when he does, he connects with his fans who still remember him as well as his show. People still wonder if Swamp Loggers would come back. They urge Bobby to take on one final season. But how to make everyone understand that it is unattainable, because returning to a world that's gradually fading into thin air is not possible. The business that once helped people to make a living out of it is no longer profitable. So the real story of what really happened to Swamp Loggers isn't something dramatic or scandalous. It's the economic force which hit so hard that even the toughest man in America couldn't survive it and had to give in. Bobby didn't really quit this job by choice. Rather, it was the economic changes that made him do so. What he did right was knowing when to give in before it could ruin him. And walking away wasn't defeat, it was survival. It took him much more courage to make this decision than to do his logging work. People thought Bobby had lost his legacy, but the fact is he didn't. His legacy lies in the hearts of people who watched and stayed throughout his journey, watching him face danger and staying determined in impossible situations and still laughing through it. This, the real story of Swamp Loggers, isn't about success or failure, but about the core values: resilience, courage, hard work, and commitment they lived by, and that endured. Our hero Bobby Goodson had taught us that sometimes the bravest thing one could do is to know when to give in and walk away so that things don't ruin them, and legacy stays in the hearts of people. It has nothing to do with economics. No economic change could ever take that away. So what's your take on this then? Did Bobby do the right thing? Let us know your thoughts below in the comment section, and if Swamp Loggers left an impression on you, hit the like and subscribe button to get more updates. Stay connected for more such real stories.